Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And I'd like to welcome you to the Managing Family on Life Online series from Trend Micro's Internet Safety for Kids and Families program. My name is Lynette Owens. I am the founder and global director of the program. And today I'm very excited to have a very special guest with us, David Kleeman, who will actually share some insights with us about the things that happened over the past few months with regard to children and their use of media. And I also like to welcome our ASL interpreter, Krista Lambert. So we thank her for joining us today as well. Today's session will be recorded for later viewing, and we'll talk about where you can find that and any of our previous sessions at the close of this session. I also want to let everybody know that at any time you are welcome to submit questions using the Q&A feature or even a chat message to your panelists, to your presenters throughout this session. We will leave time at the end for questions, as we always do. But again, if at any point in time something comes to mind, please include them in the Q&A. Okay, so I think to start, as a reminder, part of our program, for those of you who might be attending this series for the first time, is to make sure that in our education efforts, in our efforts to raise awareness about the use of the safe and responsible and positive use of technology among kids, that we do very much like to talk about what it means for kids to be online, what it means for you as parents to help children have positive and safe experiences while they're there. And that a lot of our content actually covers quite a range of things. And so even though today's session will be specifically around trends in technology use, we do want you to be aware that this program encompasses quite a wide range of issues, and the resources which we'll show you later on today also cover a wide range of issues. So the webinar series is designed to drill down in specific areas with the experts in those fields. So we want to get to know you a little bit better, you, our audience, and we encourage you to use the polling function in a minute. And so we have a couple of questions for you. How much has your children's media use or their playtime changed since March? Has it changed dramatically? Did it change a little bit? Did nothing actually change? Are you not sure? So go ahead and use the polling function. How much has your children's media use or playtime changed since March? And I can tell you from my experience, I would say it definitely changed dramatically, mostly around how much of it digitally, how much digital time was being spent. So we'll go ahead and end this polling. Looks like most of you also are in that bucket, that it changed dramatically or a little bit. And I think for those of you for whom it didn't change, I guess that's a good thing. And I think the second question here for you is around the upcoming, perhaps heavy gift giving season. So what kinds of toys or digital media are your children asking for as gifts? Is it mobile device, tablet? Is it video games or gaming device? Is it something that's non-digital, like blocks or bikes or crafts, sports supplies? Is it all of the above? This is an option as well. And if you're actually welcome to select more than one, A, B, and C if you choose, sorry, D if you choose all three, but you can choose just two of A, B, or C as well. So let's take just a couple more seconds to see. I think in our case, it's a lot of, it's probably B and B in my case. All right, so let's stop with, let's share those results. So it looks like, yes, video games. And I will say that's probably no surprise, but we're gonna stop the sharing here, and I'd like to bring in David to talk to us a little bit about this and about what you have seen over the past several months. So David, welcome. I want everybody to know a little bit about David. He not only is Senior Vice President of Global Trends at Dubbit, which is a strategy and research consultancy and a digital studio, I understand, but he also was previously the president of the American Center for Children and Media. And David, you've been in this field for 35 years, studying and really understanding children, the media industry, and really the impact and the changes that have happened in this industry over those years. So welcome.
Thank you very much. I've been very lucky to play a role in the industry that I think I in some ways invented, and that is that I never became a producer or a distributor, a writer. Instead, I was always fascinated by the space in between education, research, child development, child health, production, distribution, digital. And so I've always played a role at the American Center for Children and Media, and still with Dubbit, of kind of sitting in the middle of those and pulling expertise, people and ideas from all those different fields to make sure we're doing our best work for kids.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit about Dubbit. I think it's a fascinating organization. So if you could tell us a little bit about that, that'd be great.
It is fascinating. It's a great place for me to be because I can sit in between our two parts. So we, as you said, we have a research and strategy consultancy and also a digital studio. In the studio, we are making games, apps, virtual worlds, VR, AR. The company got its start making the first virtual world for teens, actually, back in 1999. So we have a 60-person studio in Leeds in England that is building all these things for clients. We don't build things for ourselves. We're not creating our own content. And then there's the research side where we do a lot of bespoke work for companies that ask us to study a problem they're having or an opportunity that they're looking at. But we also do a lot of work, and a lot of this is available for free on the Dubbit website, that is just looking at things where we want to be thought leaders, where we want to think ahead about how kids are using media. So work on children and virtual reality. Is it safe? Is it engaging? Is it something that we have good uses for? On children and tablet use between the ages of 1 and 5, how do kids learn to do the different gestures that you need for a tablet? So those are available on our website. And then much of what we'll talk about today comes from probably our biggest effort, which is Dubbit Trends, which is a study every 6 months in the US and UK, 2,000 families in the US and about 1,500 in the UK, and 18 other countries that we visit roughly once a year. A deep dive survey online into what devices kids have access to, how they use them, when they use them, where they use them, who they use them with, open-ended questions about their favorite content. So instead of saying, here's a list of 100 things we know, how smart are we? We say, what are your 3 favorite books, toys, TV shows, movies? And that way we find out what's on their minds. And we turn up some things that are going to be big trends down the line, but we don't necessarily, but it takes a couple rounds to see it. So that's, and then we also look at how kids find their way to content. These days, there's so much out there right now that how kids, when they decide I'm ready for something new, what strategies they use to find that thing is really critical.
I think that would be, I've always wondered this question because I get asked this question a lot. The parents always tell me, just tell me which is going to be the app that every kid is going to go to, so I can be ahead of them and I can be prepared to say yes or no to it, depending on what I find when I've taken a look at it myself. So maybe you're the person that they should be going to find that out. So I think what's going to be really interesting as we turn the page on 2020, which many of us want to do, and into the coming year, maybe do a little bit of a look back on what changed. As you can see, just from our small sample size here, that people said, the majority said media use was really different this past year. So I know there's some data that you have shared and you're actually publishing or published recently. Is that correct?
Exactly. Our first wave of trends after the start of the pandemic was really about 3 weeks in. Just we usually do April and October. And so it just happened that lockdown had just happened in US and UK. So we were able to get a very quick snapshot of what kids were doing in their first weeks at home. We just came out of the field within the last 2 weeks. Some of the data you're seeing hasn't been published yet. It's really brand new about what kids are doing 6 months in. If you want to bring up the first of the slides.
Absolutely, sure. Yeah.
This is one of the most interesting contrasts to me. So the first thing that we'll look at is what a child's media day looked like in 2018.
Okay.
Okay. So when we're looking at trends, we're looking across kids' days, what they do at different hours of the day, what devices they use, what they're doing beyond. It's not all just mediated, and some of it is playing with friends, playing games, reading, things like that. 2018, this is what a kid's day typically looked like. And we talk about something we call emotional scheduling, which is kids have a fairly innate sense, it turns out, of how much time they've got, how much, what they've been doing and what they're about to be doing. And they're very smart about picking media content or media devices that fit with their emotional mood at the time and what they know about what's going on around them. So if you look all the way over at the left of this, in the morning, kids in 2018 would turn on the TV first thing, especially younger kids. They knew they were going to be taken off to school soon. They knew that they didn't have much time. They didn't want to get into a game that was going to frustrate them because they were halfway in and then they got pulled away. They also knew they needed to stay out of the way of the morning rush in the household. So most other activities are fairly low right there, but TV pops out. During the day, obviously, they're at school, and so it's fairly flat. And then in the afternoon, we used to have what we called the Bermuda Triangle of media. Kids would be released from school. They would not be under anyone else's rule at the time. They got their devices back, and everything went on. The TV goes on, the tablet goes on, the phone goes on. You're communicating, you're socializing, you're doing your homework, you're watching TV. Everything's happening, and that stays very high all the way through until it starts to wind down at bedtime. Now, if we go forward, next slide, and look at what it looks like now, it's a much flatter day. They sleep a little later. There's no commute to school, so kids actually stay in bed a little longer. And you can see the TV no longer jumps up and dominates the day like that. I know these slides look like a Morris Louis painting, but they represent a wide range of the things that kids are doing. It remains fairly flat through the morning, but higher than it was in 2018 in the sense that they are in school at home often, but if they're not, or if they're on breaks, they are using a range of devices. They're playing outside to the extent that they can. And then you still have a little bit of a bounce at the end of the day, but nothing near, there's not the desperation that you would have seen pre-pandemic to launch into everything.
I think that's really, I definitely can relate to this, and I think a lot of families can as well. The one that's of greatest interest to me is the purple line, and I assume that is reflective of families where they are in a remote or hybrid learning situation. There are still some states, at least in the US, where or counties or districts who are going in person full time. Yeah. Just to back up a minute, what are the age ranges of the respondents.
Thank you for asking that. Dubbit Trends is 2 to 15, and then it's broken out within that by 2 to 5, or 2 to 4, 5 to 7, 8 to 10, 11 to 15. What you're seeing here is the overall 2 to 15, but we do have breakdowns for all these different things to show how
Okay.
kids' day differs.
Yeah, that makes sense. And really, it's very difficult to find research under the age of 13 for obvious reasons. But so I think I'd be interested to see the full report once it's fully published.
You were mentioning the education line. Even one of the things that we are finding is that kids are doing more self-guided education at home, even if if they're in hybrid school or or being schooled at home. Even beyond that, they're pursuing their own interests on a lot of different devices and in a lot of different ways at a higher level than we might have seen before this. And I think that's going to have interesting implications when they do go back to school, that when kids have been self-guided, self-motivated, self-starting, are we really going to take them back into a sage on the stage kind of classroom where they have to sit in rows and that, or are we going to see a rise in project-based learning, group-based learning, individual pursuits?
There's a lot of people who would love to see a revolution in education, and that this might be one of the positive outcomes of a pandemic, if there is such a thing. Absolutely. And certainly that if children, they're not in school all of the time, that in the time that they have left over, they may still pursue. You may still see this trend line even after all this is over. That's a good thing, I think. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And I know that you said there were what were some other things that you think has changed since the beginning of the pandemic?
If you go to the next slide, this is asking kids themselves what they felt had changed. They are spending more time. A lot of this is in some ways obvious. And by the way, the green background is things that are rising, things they're doing more of. The pink background is things they're doing less of. And the bars themselves, the legend fell off when I was transferring things. So it's gray at the top is don't know, green is doing more, yellow is the same, and red is less. They're doing more online learning at home, whether it is self-guided or whether it's part of their school. They're watching more YouTube. We actually, in the October data, we actually saw a little bit of a fall in YouTube Kids for the youngest kids, but a little bit of a rise for older kids in how they're using YouTube itself. And fairly intuitively, they're using video chat services. This is the way they're staying in touch with their friends at this point, is to be able to chat on Zoom, or it's worth saying, I think we'll probably come back to it later, but it's worth saying right up front, every platform is now a children's platform. This ties in so much to the work that you do, that even if you did not plan your platform to be for kids, they're there. They're on Zoom, they're on Discord, they're on YouTube's main service, and they are making it their own. And you can either choose as a platform to respond to that and make it safe for them, or you can try to shoo kids away. But it's very hard to shoo them away, and it's very hard to get them back once they turn 13 if you shoo them away now. But legally, ethically, practically, everybody is a children's platform now. And that's a caution to parents as well, to be sure you're understanding where your kids are spending time.
Absolutely. And I think, and I don't know if your data captures, and a lot of people talk about co-viewing, co-using. And so when a child is divulging that they're watching the regular YouTube and not the YouTube Kids, that they may in fact be sitting right next to mom or dad or an older sibling while they're doing
it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially if there's not enough devices to go around in the house. Okay, great. And I know there were other things I know that you and I had spoken about that sort of stuck out over this last 6 months.
The last 6 months. Yeah, if you go forward to the next slide.
Yep.
There we go. Yeah, I think what really stuck out to us, and you mentioned it in co-viewing, is that families are doing everything they can to isolate this time and make it a special time and to make up for the things that they're unable to do. This below does not come from trends. It comes from online interviews we've been doing with parents both in the US and the UK. So these are direct quotes from parents of kids of a variety of ages. They're not spending money on cinema, going out for dinners as much, or cinema, or going on vacations. And they feel like we've got that money to invest in things to make time at home special. So instead of just watching a movie on television, they'll turn it into a movie night where you'll bring in a pizza or you'll make popcorn. Some families are even having campouts in the basement where you sleep over while you're watching the movie. They're doing more activities that are free or low cost. Going for walks together. There was a time early in the pandemic when you could not buy a bicycle for love or money in many US cities because everyone was rushing out to buy bikes so they could get out together. And I do love that last one of the father who taught his son how to play online poker, and the mother was not sure if that was really a good idea. And this is the main thing I think that's going to stick around. I think family, for 3 years or more, when we ask families about what's most important to you, what do you want more of? The answer from kids is more time with my parents. From parents, it's more time with my kids. And sometimes, somehow it didn't happen necessarily before, but now that everybody is home, it's happening. They're co-viewing, they are playing games together, they're doing puzzles together, they're going out for walks. So this has been the thing that I think all families are telling us, we hope that won't go away.
Yeah, I have to say, and I think that this is something we can all do as we might do this at the end of a calendar year where you reflect over the past year, you make this list of New Year's resolutions. It seems to be a very common theme around there are things from this that we loved. And it was bringing back some of the good old stuff we did when we were children. For whatever reasons, I think partly because we had no other options, but also because we had the time. We finally had the time to do it. And, I think that, I just want to sort of draw upon the research that you've just recently done, as well as your experience in this field. What do you, there have been positive trends, of course, but there were also some concerning trends in there as well. I mean, increased use of, I think games is probably one of them that we've heard of in our poll just at the start of this session. Video gaming is the thing that video games are the things that kids want the most. So I don't want to necessarily paint video gaming in a bad light, but any concerning trends that you saw over the past 6 months or from this most recent study or any studies?
Well, I think certainly the amount of time being spent is something that you need to look at, but I'm a big fan. I don't use the term screen time because screens bring us so many different things at this point that measuring it with a stopwatch makes no sense. I'm a great believer in Lisa Guernsey's content, context, and the individual child, the 3 C's of evaluating what your child is doing. So absolutely, with trying to work at home. I saw a wonderful headline, well, not so wonderful, a headline the other day that said that the UK has seen a rise in smashed television sets. And they seem to be attributing it to families where parents are trying to work at home, kids are trying to school from home, and at some point, just the cacophony of noise boils over and then, somebody throws something at the TV. So there is tension to be had in all this family togetherness as well. You mentioned games, and I think the really important thing that we're looking at right now is something I call down on the corner is now up on the server. That you have to look at why kids are playing so many games. And so many of the games that they are playing are social games, are games where you gather together with your friends. And if you can't be together at the playground, on the schoolyard, in the backyard, on the street, then you find ways to communicate. Fortnite, just before the pandemic, launched Fortnite Creative, which is not a competition game. It's where you can create an island and outfit your island and invite friends over to spend time with you there. It's a safe place to spend time with friends. Fortnite and Roblox both put on concerts on their platforms. You can't go to a concert, so we'll put on a concert here. There were 33 million views of a Lil Nas X concert on Roblox a week or so ago, and similarly, multiple millions watched concerts on Fortnite. And then Minecraft really stepped up its Minecraft education so that in places where there is virtual schooling going on, they could use it as a platform for kids to build and learn. So this is how kids are able to stay connected now. And if a parent listens closely, I think what they'll see is their kids may start talking with their friends about the game, but very quickly it'll become the equivalent of what it would be if you were listening in as they sat on the couch before the pandemic all together, or in the backseat of the car, that they really open up to each other.
I will testify to that. That I'm a witness of that firsthand. And it can get a little boisterous because kids who are not, they're still becoming adept at using headphones to communicate, not just listen to music passively, but to communicate with others so they don't realize how loud they are. And so we're often there's a lot of, hey, buddy, can you keep that? Can you keep it down?
I'm on a call now.
Love hearing him laugh. There's a lot of laughter, a lot of ribbing, a lot of, there could be some complaining like, hey, why did you do that? I shouldn't have. But it really isn't about the game anymore.
One of the things that we saw before the pandemic was we did a chart where we talked to parents about what the factors are when they decide to say yes or decide to spend money. And we broke it into quadrants. So on the left is, this is something I would never do myself. And on the right is, I'd kind of like to join in and do that with my child. And at the bottom is, I see no benefit in this for my child. And at the top is, I see a benefit in this. And so the upper right quadrant is where you want to be, although the upper left quadrant, parents will say yes, even if they understand the benefit, even if they don't want to do it, they'll say yes. But what we found from this is parents interpret benefit very broadly, that it makes my kid laugh is a valuable benefit to them. There's a company out of Finland called Gigglebug, and Gigglebug's mission is to make kids and parents laugh together. That's their sole mission. So that's one thing. The other is that when we did a deep dive on Minecraft for a client, we spent a lot of time talking with parents and kids about how they used Minecraft, why they used it, and all that. And one of the things we found is parents would say, I don't understand. This was a couple of years ago, so when Minecraft was a little bit edgier, a little bit less known. Parents would say, I don't necessarily always know what my child is doing, but I can see how deeply engaged they are, and I can see how thoughtful they're being, and I can see that they're creating. They're not just consuming. And they said, so I back away, and I don't interfere.
I think that's an important point. I will say, though, that, and I think there are many parents out there who can also attest to this, and that is, we also don't want to lump all games together, meaning there are some that are better than others. One area that I have a lot of concerns about are the games that have no end. I'm a big proponent of games like, Madden or FIFA or NBA 2K. There's a beginning and an end, but then the games that can literally go on forever. And trying to get your child away from that screen, and they say, can I just 5 more minutes, just 10 more minutes, or can I just finish this game? I'm sure many of us out there have heard those pleas.
And if they know the game better than you, then it's, just one more level, and what you don't realize is a level is going to take
an hour. Is an hour. Very smart. That's smart on their parts. But so I don't know what your thoughts are about the best practices. I mean, what are there better games than others, and have you found that in your experience, and what do those look like?
Well, I guess I would go back to saying that it depends so much on the needs of the child, that different kids express different emotions, express different needs through the games that they play. Certainly, I said before, I reject the idea of screen time. I do believe in balance. So I think that if your child is getting sort of sucked into anything that is very hard to break them away from, that is occupying their time to the exclusion of other things that you would like them to be doing, or that they ought to be doing, or that they are required to be doing, that's when it interferes with day-to-day life, and you need to start looking at why that is. In terms of game design, the more active, the better. Certainly where your decisions have consequences, and that's certainly true in Minecraft. It's true to some extent in Fortnite as well. Roblox is really fascinating us right now. We're spending a lot of time looking at Roblox because there it's not a game, it's the YouTube of games. There are millions and millions of games on the platform. So kids have a lot of choice about what kind of game they prefer, and is it something that just takes 5 minutes, or is it something that takes longer? But more important, they can make their own games. And we are seeing games, they may be very simple, designed by kids as young as 7 or 8. They may be very complex. Roblox as a company is doing all it can to encourage older gamers to really become look at coding and how to build a good game. And so it's not just a consumption platform, it's a production platform as well. Kids can share their games with their friends, and they can also draw quite a good bit of attention for it.
Now, I know that in some of your research, you actually you do look at non-digital forms of media and play. Can you speak a little bit about that? Either, anything happened in this past year?
When you break down that multicolored chart that I showed at the beginning, reading is up. Kids are reading throughout the day. Some of that clearly is for school, but a good bit of that is for pleasure as well. And it's staying fairly high. It rises through the morning, which may account for the school time, but it stays high into the afternoon. In terms of qualitative, anecdotal work that we're doing with families, classic toy, and this is also backed up by what we've been reading from other people's research into sales and marketing. Classic toys are coming back. Kids are, I mentioned bicycles before, but also board games, puzzles, and a lot of that is family play, that they're all doing it together. Barbie sales are way up, and the speculation is that has to do with kids wanting to feel comforted, wanting the nurturing side of playing with Barbie. Old toys like toy trucks and cars are up. So I think people are looking, as I say, they're willing to spend more. And that's something that I think we're going to have to really keep an eye on going forward, because I think there will be a reckoning at the end of the pandemic, and especially if we don't get better economic management for families these days. But there will be a reckoning at some point where they'll say, oh, we were spending more than we thought we were. We're going to have to cut back on some of the subscriptions. We're going to have to cut back on the toy purchases and things like that. But for now, they are willing to invest in their kids' comfort and happiness.
That's interesting. And is that being driven by the parents choosing that, or is that something the children are choosing?
Well, it's an interesting question. We asked parents about how they're shopping for toys for their kids right now, and parents were telling us, I really used to like taking my kid to the toy store. First of all, the child got so excited about it, but second of all, often they would discover something that they didn't know existed. Online, they said, yes, my children will look at stuff and they'll say, oh, I like that, or yeah, I get that. But there's not the excitement of seeing it in person, picking it up, playing with it, trying it out. There's not the excitement of, I never knew that existed. I just turned the corner on this aisle and I found something that really intrigues me, and I never knew about it before. So I think parents are having to lead a lot of it, but we're seeing the retreat to familiarity across all platforms. So kids are going back often to television series that they watched previously, because it makes them feel comfortable. They kind of know what to expect. They may even go back to one for an age younger than them because it helps them feel comforted. Mm-hmm. They are playing with toys that they haven't had out for a while. They're playing video games as well, we found, that they haven't played for a while. And I think all of this speaks to their world was turned upside down, and they're looking for the handholds that let them feel normal.
Well, that's and I think, and I can definitely attest to that too. It's interesting because I think we as adults were also doing that. looking for the
Absolutely.
creature comforts, looking for the routines, for anything that could remind us of times that we're happier or safer, whatever that feeling is that you're
You know,
trying to capture.
there's an interesting thing happening with co-viewing of television that I think reflects that, and that is we were starting to see it before the pandemic, but it's really accelerated now. That what families are watching together tends to be the dance shows, the cooking shows, the talent shows, and we describe it as these are like unboxing videos for families. That in an unboxing video, I'm sure a lot of parents of preschoolers are familiar with unboxing videos where the kid watches a toy being opened or something. You know what's inside a Kinder Egg. You know what's inside a Lol Surprise. You don't know what's inside this Kinder Egg, this Lol Surprise. So that's the attraction of watching it. And with a dance show, a cooking show, you know it's going to be cooking. You know it's Cake Week on Great British Bake Off, but you don't know who's going to fall short, who's going to really excel. Families develop rooting interests. They pick their favorites and they turn it into a game themselves.
Well, that's and I wonder, do you think that programming on this note, do you think programming going into 2021, are we going to see new shows and new, like, more episodes of these kinds of shows?
Well, I think we'll see, the reality shows like that seem to have found a way to produce during the pandemic. And they're not shows that last a long time. You don't want to watch the same episode of Dancing with the Stars 2 or 3 times. You know what's going to happen. So they need to keep refreshing. They seem to have found ways to produce new episodes, and that's important. Animation has done well during the pandemic because you can make it anywhere. You don't have to be in the same place. What we're looking at right now is that the challenge for creators of content for kids is it usually takes 2 to 3 years to get a series from concept to air. Now, if you're looking right now at what the world looks like, you're trying to figure out what is the world going to look like in 2023, 2024. Are we still going to be distancing at all? Are people going to be comfortable watching people close together? It's a very hard prediction now. If you're a YouTuber, if you're if you're an influencer, you're in great shape because you wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, I think I'm going to do a cooking show today," and it's on it's on YouTube by noon, and tomorrow I'll do something different. We're looking at a middle ground right now. We are hearing from kids that while they don't want to be overwhelmed with content about COVID, they don't want to be made more anxious, they do want to be treated with respect and with information and with kept abreast of what's going on in the world. And so we're seeing what we call agile development. There's a wonderful series from Sinking Ship Entertainment in Canada called Lockdown. It's on YouTube Originals, for older kids, probably about 9 to 12, maybe 9 to 15. It'll actually hold on into the teenage years. That is all about being in lockdown, and it's shot entirely by the teenage actors themselves with cell phones. It all takes place in the media that they're used to: TikTok, Zoom, FaceTime, things like that. But it goes beyond just we have to wear masks and we have to distance. Into some really meaty issues about racism, about family health, about family economics. It went from concept to air literally in 6 weeks.
Wow. I need to watch that. Actually, I think that might be a fascinating series as a parent. But so are you predicting that we're going to see more of those kinds of, because we are missing the new movie releases on Fridays and going to the theater. We're definitely missing those days. And my kids are big Marvel Cinematic Universe fans, and a few releases got stopped and held up. So everybody's just waiting. When are they coming out with those? Because they might have already been in post-production.
Absolutely.
Wondering when they'll be coming. Yeah.
From our interviews with families, primarily, a little bit from trends, but primarily from our qualitative research, we think people are going to be staying home for a while. It's going to be a while before people trust going back into the theaters. And since they've done what I was talking about before and created movie nights, and since more and more people, Disney Plus and Netflix and the studios are releasing things straight to their streaming services, and families can turn that into a special movie night, when we're ready to go back to the theater, we may go back for different things. We may go back for more live concerts, or the kinds of things that you would see before the pandemic, where they would broadcast the New York, New York Philharmonic or the opera into a theater because the theater was empty on weekend afternoons. That may become more of a model for keeping theaters alive.
I think the drive-in theaters that popped up everywhere might just make their way back.
Wonderful.
Yeah, the only thing that stopped us was the bathroom. It was the strategy for the bathroom. But I'd love to see that as a comeback, because I actually think that could be really fun for families, depending on where you live. In the downtown area of our city, they used a big plaza, and you had to, they squared off spaces, and you had to obviously reserve. But the drive-in, if you have space for drive-ins, you certainly could easily space.
The innovation that's gone on to around entertainment, around keeping people engaged, is wonderful. I have to say, one of my favorite things I've seen in the last week was a colleague of mine in the entertainment industry, lives in Los Angeles, and she bought a huge amount of sidewalk chalk and bundled it up into packets and put an anonymous note on it saying, "We just thought you would enjoy something to brighten up our neighborhood," and quietly distributed it to all the houses in her neighborhood. And the blossoming of sidewalk art that has resulted, nobody knows who did it, but they just all came out and started making art.
I think that's what a great idea to do.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. David, I know we've had a few comments and questions come up, and so I'd like to actually address some of those right now, if we could. A couple of questions here. Did you observe differences in activities, and I assume this is from your study, based on the younger versus the older? Because I know you didn't split it out in that slide, but did you see anything noticeable based on the two age ranges?
I think we have not done all the breakdowns yet from April to October, so it's a little hard to tell. I would say that the older kids have been able to be more innovative about how they're connecting with friends. They have the platforms like Fortnite or like Minecraft, where they can socialize. We did see an interesting spike in kids spending time together, and I think that may have been over the summer as they were able to spend time outside, where older kids were finding ways to get together safely with their friends. And I think that's probably about as far as we've gotten in really breaking it down.
Okay, and a follow-up to that was, what are some of the favorite apps that have maybe risen to on your radar for that? It's preschool is the question, but I'm going to say that's the 2 to 5 probably age ranges. Any that came to mind that you've heard about, anecdotally, qualitatively, even?
And I asked the guy who runs Trends if he had broken out the brands and things like that yet, and he has not. I'm just trying to think if there's anything that we have. I will give a little plug for actually a game that Dubbit built that had really remarkable downloads over the summer, and that is a lot of parents may be familiar with Go Noodle. It's an in-school, they're videos that are used as kind of an exercise break in between classes. You get up and dance to a video, get up and move. And kids were coming home and saying they wanted to do Go Noodle at home. And some of them were finding ways to get the videos through teacher accounts and that. But Go Noodle had us build a free game for them that uses the tablet as a motion capture device. So you set the tablet up, you lean it against something and you start the game, and the child's movement within the game actually makes different things happen. So you're popping bubbles underwater by moving, and that kind of thing. Active gaming, I think, has even for little kids has been very powerful.
That is great. I think I would try that. I assume you don't have to be 2 to 5 years old to use it.
I think you probably just have to stand a little further back.
Okay, all right. I just need to. Fantastic. Okay, and I think the other thing I'd like to ask about is just thinking about the upcoming holiday season, and it sounds to me like maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea. This is one season versus any others, where buying the good old fashioned, we do a lot of Monopoly in our house. We could not find 1,000-piece puzzles for a period of time. We couldn't find them anywhere.
Yep.
Or they were, 8 to 10 weeks out for shipping. I think hopefully that's not the case now, but haven't had to buy any. But any other thoughts on what you think might go over well?
I do think the classics. I think that as we get closer to kids being liberated again, promising vaccine trials and things like that, they're probably going to put down their devices for a while when they're able to go out and play again. And so sports equipment, things that are going to let them be out and moving and active and with their friends at such time as it's safe, I think would be a great thing right now. Experiences. I mean, what we've really learned from this is it's not the video games, it's not the television, it's the being together, it's the time spent together. And if you can come up with things that you can do as a family, if you can promise your kids a special picnic when the weather's good, or if you haven't been already, turning a movie night into something really special. The most amazing things are selling. I don't know if you've read this story about the couches. There's a certain kind of couch that is made up of multiple pieces, and they're perfect for couch forts because of all the pillows are separate. And like bicycles before, like jigsaw puzzles, you cannot find these things, because it's not that it's a great couch, it's that it lets you turn your basement into a blanket fort.
So that's it. Just pull out all the blankets. Buy a lot of blankets.
Buy a lot of blankets.
Buy a lot of blankets. So
and a lot of couches. And you don't even need the house anymore.
Fantastic. Well, David, I thank you so much for your time today. I think this has been great, and I do encourage others to continue putting your questions in the Q&A for these final minutes. I do want to quickly just share a little bit of information here for our viewers, that at the conclusion of the session today, we will also be sending out a survey. We'll actually populate on your browser immediately as you shut down from this session. And if you're willing to just answer the quick 3 or 4 questions, as well as include your email address, then you could actually win a copy of Trend Micro Maximum Security, which would protect up to 5 devices in your home. That's a year-long subscription to the product. I also would encourage you to join us for our upcoming session on December 2nd, which will be about gaming in particular. We're going to have a guest who's also a Trend Internet Safety for Kids and Families ambassador, Matt Hilgers, who was very much a gamer himself, has a really wonderful personal story about gaming and the impact to the family he has now, and is now raising a gamer. So to talk about gaming as someone who did it for quite some time, and now as a father raising someone who is doing that. So I do encourage everybody to join us for that session. David, I don't know, any final thoughts, any word on when this the full report will be available?
Usually we process it about 4 to 6 weeks after all the data comes in. It's fully processed by then. It's something that we syndicate. So it's we sell it to companies. Okay. And then we publish a lot of stories around it. We're looking for the story. My job with Dubbit as head of global trends is really to look for the stories underneath the statistics. Mm-hmm. So as we finish wrapping it up, I'll be doing a lot of writing for all different kinds of publications, play publications, media publications, parents publications, posting a lot on Dubbit's website as well about what we're seeing in it and what we think it means.
Fantastic. I can't wait to get a hold of that and read that. So again, thank you so much, David, for your time today. I encourage everybody to please fill out the survey, join us for our next session. And if you are interested in all of our resources for any of the topics with regard to children and helping them be great digital citizens, we encourage you to visit internetsafety.trendmicro.com. And I would also say that I wish everybody, we do have another session, as I said, the 2nd of December and the 16th, to watch previous sessions of ours as well. We've had some fantastic experts, and we're really happy to add David to that list as of today. So with that, signing off, thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.